today we have Shubhojeet Nandy talking about God and the world in the tradition of Ibn-al-Arabi. So Shubhojeet has just completed his MA in philosophy from IIT-Bombay, uh, SSS department IIT-Bombay, and now we are here to listen him. And also so because this discussion will be more interesting and more intriguing because we do not usually uh, go into the Arabic philosophical tradition, which is not just not in any way Islamic only, but it's because there were Christian scholars, Jewish scholars, and also Muslim scholars who are working there, and they also have means relevant philosophical ideas which we should means in any case should look for, and this is and such an exercise we are hoping for with Shubhojeet. Thank you, Shubhojeet, for having us and presenting this. It's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this talk. I'd also like to thank Himanshu for organizing these discussions and allowing me to speak on this platform. This talk is an introduction to the philosophy of Ibn al-Arabi and his descendants who are known as the Akbarians. Therefore, the title of our discussion today is God and the World in the Tradition of Ibn al-Arabi. Before I start, I will give a brief overview of my presentation today. First of all, I will provide some background on Sufism. Uh, then we will see how Ibn al-Arabi employs philosophy in his thoughts. After that, we shall notice how the works of his intellectual descendants uh, provided suitable expression and philosophical rigor to his thoughts. Then we will see how, through the interplay of categories such as divine names, permanent archetypes, and degrees of reality, the Agrarian thinkers established the unity of existence, which is a very central doctrine to the Sufis. After that, we will discuss the transcendent and immanent nature of God, uh, and um, uh, through the writings of Muhibullah Allahabadi, and finally, we will see how God and world co constitute each other through the writings of the same author. And finally, I will conclude. Um, so, to begin with, some brief information is given about Ibn al-Arabi, his seminal works, Fusus al-Hikam and Futuhat al-Makayya. There was a long chain of commentators who, uh, who, who were actually disciples of Ibn al-Arabi, who also commented upon his seminal works. Some of the famous ones are mentioned here: Kunnavi, Ibn al-Farid, Kaysari. Kaysari, I'll also use his Mukaddima. I'll also use in today's talk, and Abdul Razak Kashani. And then there is Muhibullah Ilahabadi, who is also known as the South Asian heir to Ibn al-Arabi. He is basically someone who picks up the tradition of Ibn al-Arabi and comments upon his writings in his writing called Taswiya Bain al-Ifada wa al-Kabul, which is equivalence between giving and receiving. And I'll be using that text as well. So, with this brief introduction in our mind, I shall introduce you to how Sufism um, can be situated within the Islamic philosophy, and how, how Sufism was different from other schools and similar to other schools, and how the ideas were moving in the Islamic philosophy, in the Islamic philosophy. So, Sufism or Tasawwuf is one of the formidable schools within Islamic philosophy. Its approach to the question of wujud, which is existence, is most central question in Islamic philosophy. Um, so, in Sufism, the approach to wujud is through direct revelation. The other prominent schools also deal with the wujud or the question of existence, but in a manner quite different from the Sufis. For example, the school of scholastic theology, Kalam, largely dependent upon the scriptures, while peripatetic school, Masha, was highly influenced by the works of Aristotle and believed that wujud can be known through the employment of rational enterprise. On the other hand, the school of illuminationism, Ishraq, employed a method in which reason, revelation, and divine illumination was fused together. Finally, the transcendent school, Al-Hikmat al-Muthaliya, founded by Sadruddin al-Shirazi, also known as Mullah Sadra, synthesized all the schools before him to approach the question of wujud. All the schools of Islamic thought are predominantly theistic and accept the authority of Quran, Sunnah, and Hadith. So, Sunnah and Hadith, if these terms are a bit unknown to the audience today, so basically, Sunnah are the um, day-to-day actions of the Prophet, his what he ate, how he kept his beard, the postures in which he sat, and all sorts of day-to-day things that the Prophet did, which are considered to be the how we should also try and emulate him in our lives. So Sunnah is basically that, and Hadith is basically his recorded teachings. So these are all Quran, Sunnah, and Hadith are very sacred to the Islamic pantheon, to their thought, and is very central to their doctrines as well. As a result, we see as a result we see inter and intra movement of ideas within Islamic philosophy because the ways of philosophizing had to be in confirmation with the Quran, which apart from being a religious scripture was the foundation of their belief system. The Sufi thinkers were not an exception to this principle and were deeply religious in their outlook. Now, moving on, so Ibn al-Arabi comes to the picture, and how now we'll see how Ibn al-Arabi himself introduces a tradition within Sufism, which brings in uh, what you call brings in the tradition of philosophy within Sufism, and uh, and how he and after him the Akbarian tradition, which is named after him because he himself is known as Sheikhul Akbar. So the tradition that followed him was called as the Akbarian tradition. uh, Came to fore. Okay, so the Sufi thinkers were ardent supporters of the doctrine of unity of existence, which is called Wahdatul Wujud. However, they found different ways of expressing the same belief. While someone like Jalaluddin Rumi used poetic language and emphasized the means of love to realize the truth, on the other hand, someone like Abu Hamid al Ghazali explained the same principle, relying heavily on the scripture and scriptural evidence. I'm not discussing them in any further detail here, as they will be out of the scope of this talk. All I wish to communicate here is that is the same belief found different ways of expression in different proponents. Similarly, in the works of Sheikhul Akbar Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi, a symbolic and aphoristic usage can be seen. Although Ibn al-Arabi discussed philosophical concepts at length, but he never made use of the language employed by the philosophers and theologians of his day. Instead, we see that he was critical of the philosophers and theologians, saying that the intellect is an inadequate means to realize wujud, because the human intellect is limited and it can only know things the way it appears to them. According to him, human existence, which itself is contingent, at best imperfect, and the intellect of God is only capable of expressing the truth through gnosis and spirituality. In this regard, I like to quote Ibn al-Arabi himself. He says, "None of the men of knowledge have discovered this knowledge of the soul except the godly, namely the messengers and the Sufis. As for the companions of reasoning and the masters of thinking, namely the ancients and the theologians in their theological discussions concerning the soul and its quiddity, none have discovered its reality, and mental reasoning will never grant it. Whosoever seeks knowledge of it by way of mental reasoning does so in vain. Such are certainly among those whose efforts lead them astray in the life of this lower world, thinking that they are doing something good. Whosoever seeks this affair through other than its proper way shall not obtain it." Um, so then we see uh, for Ibn al-Arabi, the proper means of wajud is revelation, tajalliyat, or direct experience, kashf. However, we also see that the insights of the philosophers and theologians are not to be neglected. Instead, they are to be used in a constructive manner. Ibn al-Arabi is only against the excessive reliance on intellect, aql, and emphasizes the need to employ the faculty of heart, qalb. So, qalb literally means heart, but in our context, its meaning should be not delimited to a muscular organ that pumps blood in our body. Rather, the word is employed to convey the meaning of inwardness or a pure receptacle for truth. So, this is the way we should understand kalp. And yeah, the truth in this regard is nothing but the experience of the most fundamental cause, the necessary existence, wajib ul wujud. According to Ibn al-Arabi, since the category of necessary existence is beyond the usual and mundane experiences of the world, too much reliance on intellect will lead to nowhere. Kanake Dagley, uh, a very renowned philosopher of Ibn al-Arabi and a good authority on Ibn al-Arabi's text, tells us that it should not be thought, however, that Ibn al-Arabi saw no value in engaging with philosophy and theology. Indeed, he clearly knew something about them and devoted many pages to defending his own views. But he defended them on his own terms and used their terminologies and methods only insofar as they were. Hello?
Yes, yes, you can listen.
Should I continue?
Yes, I was just saying, can you please have, means it's because most of them are not aware of anything related as little detailed explanation, just that. I mean,
Okay, okay,
yes, yes.
okay, okay. Once I finish, I can like give explain. You can like keep your questions in the inbox, and wherever you require details, I'll speak more about them.
Okay,
Okay.
please continue.
Yeah. So yeah. Uh, yeah. So uh, therefore, we see a complicated way in which Ibn al-Arabi dealt with philosophy and theology. On the one hand is his insistence on direct revelation, while on the other is his engagement with philosophy and theology as a mode of expression. As a result, we see an engagement that is unsystematic, elusive, because it becomes very difficult to follow Ibn al Arabi's chain of thought that freely traverses between the modes of ephemeral experience and cogent thinking. His two seminal works, the Meccan Revelations, Futuhat al Makkiyah, and Bezels of Wisdom, or Fusus al Hikam, were commented upon extensively by his intellectual descendants in order to systemize and make sense of the insights of Sheikh al Akbar. The intellectual descendants of Ibn al Arabi gave his metaphysical doctrine a philosophical structure and made them more conversant with the popular beliefs of their times, often using the language of the Greeks to philosophize. For example, the Greek conception of form and matter were conceived in the same manner and given the names suvar and madda. Thus, we see the inception of a philosophical tradition within Sufism. These descendants of Ibn al-Arabi were well trained in both Greek and Islamic thought. Through their commentaries, they simplified the message of the Shaykh. Even today, in order to understand the original works of Ibn al-Arabi, the amateur reader is advised to acquaint themselves with these commentaries. For today's talk, I have mostly relied on the 13th century Akbarian thinker, Daud al-Kaisari's commentary known as the Muqaddimah, and the 16th century Indian Sufi scholar, Muhibullah Ilahabadi's commentary called Taswiyah. Through the help of these commentators, we will see how the Akbarian Sufis advanced their belief in the unity of existence or Wahdatul Wujud. This Sufi doctrine, which is Wahdatul Wujud or the unity of existence, attempts to maintain the unity of all existence. This means that fundamentally and ultimately, God is the background of the myriads of things in our experience. We will now see the different ways in which this doctrine is explained by the Akbarians. Um, so, the mechanism of divine names, permanent archetypes, and the levels of reality is employed by the Sufi thinkers in order to advance or in order to propose their belief in the unity of existence. So, the divine names are the qualities through which God is known by humankind. The divine names Al Asma Al Husna are 99 in number, as mentioned in the Hadith. These serve as the foundation of existence. All things, whether material or immaterial, arise from these names and return to them. As Kashani tells us, and I would like to quote him, a thing is known through its name. The names of God are the characteristics and identities of the forms through which his qualities and essence are known. Allah is the name of the absolute divine essence qua essence, which is neither positively nor negatively conditioned by quality. Through the merciful Al Rahman, each thing reaches its perfection according to its capacity and wisdom. Through the compassionate Al Rahim, human beings reach spiritual perfection with respect to their endpoints. The divine names are essentially, I close the quotes, the divine names are essentially those qualities that enable the knowledge of God. They are themselves the facets of reality, the union of which is God, the absolute reality. These are the first manifestations of essence. According to the religious beliefs held by Sufis, mankind initially was not aware of these names. The divine names were taught or revealed to humans by God. In a way, divine names are that which allow for the manifestation of reality by playing the role of the transcendental principles. Just as in order to make sense of the world, we require the categories of time and space. Similarly, the divine names, by becoming the initial manifestations, have allowed for the rest of the creation to take place. To clarify this point further, Ali writes, all things in external existence are subsumed under the divine name manifest, according to their external existence. And God, with respect to his manifestation, is identical with the manifest. So, this word, the manifest, is a divine name, and everything that we see in the world is basically possible because the divine name manifest is acting upon it. So, every material thing that you can see around is manifest to you because there is a divine name manifest that allows for it. So, yeah, thus entities in the world are manifestations of God. The divine name, the manifest, Al Zahir, is the prerequisite condition for such entities to be manifest as knowable things in the world. Things that are not of this world are in that sense unseen and are subsumed under the divine name, the unseen, Al Goyab, which is again an attribute of God. The divine names are such preconditions that allow for other successive manifestations of God in the lower levels of existence. This happens when the divine names get individuated into permanent archetypes, al ayan al thabita. These are the veiled realities of the external world. In other words, these permanent archetypes are the forms that are hidden behind the material world. These are the ideal state of all the material things in the world. Mm. The permanent archetypes, by manifesting through multiple degrees of reality, which is called tashkil, come to be known as the entities in the material world. They are called permanent because they are present eternally in the knowledge of God. On the other hand, the word ain, singular of ayon, can mean entity, essence, or reality, depending upon its manifestation in different realms of reality. For example, in the material realm, alam al madda, the permanent archetypes have both form, suvar and matter, madda, and are seen as entities in the material world. In the imaginal realm, alam al misal, they manifest themselves only as forms, and hence they exist as ideas or images. One step above that is the realm of intellect, alamul aql, uh, or alamul haq, where they are they manifest themselves as reality, as the unity of divine names, as absolute reality. In all the realms, the same essence is manifested in a succession of descent, which is called tanazzulat. This means that there is a descent of reality, first as absolute reality, then as ideas, and then as entities. Thus, God, essence, divine names, and permanent Archetypes are the expression of the same reality in accordance to the principle of receptivity. The external world receives existence through permanent archetypes, which in turn receive their existence through the divine names, and finally, the divine names are bestowed existence by God. In this regard, Kaisari observes permanent archetypes. I would like to quote Kaisari here. So, permanent archetypes have two aspects. They are forms of divine names and the realities of external entities. In the former, they are like bodies for spirits, and in the latter, they are like spirits for the bodies. The divine names also have two aspects, an aspect of their unity with the essence and an aspect of their multiplicity. With respect to their multiplicity, they are in need of emanation from the divine presence that comprehends them, and a recipient such as the word, like goes the quotes. Uh, Thus, we see that there are different levels in which a thing can be known. The Sufi thinkers believe that even as ordinary humans, we have access to these realms in our dreams. The Gnostics and the other Sufis, have access to these realms in all times. Uh, Rahman, another scholar of Ibn-al-Arabi, writes, when we conceive something rationally, a corresponding image for figurizing it comes to exist in our imagination. And when the image in the imagination becomes very strong, it comes to exist externally before our sense perception. Thus, the realm of imagination is the middle ground between the contingent and the eternal. However, the higher realms of existence are more abstract and hidden. This abstraction does not mean non-existence, since since the forms, sewer, abstracted from objects of the world, are equally and perhaps more real. They are not just mental constructions. They are not itibari. They are not mental constructions. Muhibullah uses the terminology abstraction, tajarid, and extraction, intiza, to explain this phenomenon. For example, the form human is abstracted from the particulars such as Zaid, Raza, and Khalid, but their existence along with the abstracted form human is extracted from the essence. This process of successive extraction is what provides existence to all the beings of lower realms. Every abstraction, in this sense, is an equal extraction of reality from the absolute. If a form is abstracted from particulars, it surely loses materiality, but at the same time, it gains by extracting reality from the absolute. The more material the constitution of a thing is, the less real it becomes. And the more abstract or ideal a thing is, the more it is near to God and closer to reality, haqaiq. The Akbarians, by positing three different realms that overlap each other, have tried to explain the relation between God, forms, and material entities. In this relation, as we have seen in our discussion so far, the one manifests itself as many in different levels of reality. Thus, the conceptions of divine names, permanent archetypes, and degrees of reality enable the Akbarians to maintain their strict adherence to the unity of all existence. But one might ask the question, uh, why can't we explain the nature of God, who is the background of this world, through the natural laws? Um, to this problem, Muhibullah answers and explains the exalted position of God as something above and beyond the natural series of causation, yet at the same time immanent in it. He writes in the Taswiyah, as I quote, among them are those who asserted that world is like a building, requiring a builder, but they did not realize the composite arrangement of the building's parts depends upon the arranging builder who is not himself made up of its building's material components. Uh, this he has written in his Taswiyah. So, if I could elaborate upon this, so through the analogy of building and the builder, Muhibullah is referring to the world and the necessary creator of this world. He further tells us that the necessary creator of the world cannot be of the nature of the world, Because if the creator of the world is of the nature of the world, then that will also lead to an infinite regress. Because we will again have to ascertain a cause for such material. For example, this problem is seen in the propositions of pre Socratic Greek thinkers, who, by ascertaining the fundamental cause of something in nature, like water, fire, etc., fell into the trap of infinite regress, because then the cause of this water, fire, has to be ascertained. The cause then has to be an uncaused cause, like the conception of God by the Akbarians. The Akbarians use both transcendence, tanzi, and immanence, tashbih, to characterize the nature of God. This means that God, being beyond all things in all the realms, transcends all the creations, and by providing existence to everything in all the realms, is inherently present in them. The doctrine of the unity of existence advocates that there is essentially no partaking or sharing, but just the manifestation of the same essence at different levels of existence. Finally, yeah, the relation of co-constitution of God and the world. So this again is picked up from Muhibullah's writing, how he says God and the world as to co-constitute, related through co-constitution, as one constituting the other. So the Akbarians have actually blurred the difference between the ideal and the material. Muhibullah explains that the material and the ideal are co-constitutive of each other. He says, and I quote, thus the giver and the receiver, with respect to both qualification, ittisaf, by existence, and non-qualification by it, are equivalent. And so I have named my treatise the equivalence between giving and receiving. For the existentiator, Mujid is like the finder, Wajid, in the sense of becoming manifest through possible existence. Zahir bi wujud al mumkin, just like human, which becomes manifest through the existence of Zaid, for instance. Well, if I elaborate upon this paragraph by Muhibullah, so the word here, the word giver refers to the giver of existence, and by default, the giver must possess existence, and the receiver, by the same logic, is that which can receive existence. The possessor of existence, by manifesting itself in various realms, finds a possibility to know itself. Later, he adds, the act of form giving, musavvir, is also to be given form, mutasavvar. That is to imply that essence, by giving its existence, gets shaped as forms inserted in the realm of images, and similarly is seen as external objects when it is delimited in the material world. There is a relation of co-constitution, as the existence, both form and matter, without existence will be nothing, and the essence, without being manifested as form and matter, will never be able to find a locus for itself in the various realms of existence. Finally, I'd like to conclude. Um, so, the philosophy of uh, the Akbarian tradition uh, by has has been very central to Sufi thought, and has helped the message of has helped for the transmitting of the message of Islam. Um, I through my year-long research in this field, I've come to know that the Akbarians thinker that the Akbarian thinkers employ philosophy to further the religious beliefs. The tradition of Ibn-al-Arabi allows us to see a contrasting view within Islamic philosophy, which is dominated by peripatetism and strong scriptural tradition. So, more often than not, we see that uh, works of Aristotle becomes the philosophical background to explain all Islamic thought, and it somehow it is dominated by peripatetism. And for this, I guess mostly Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd uh, are, are to be are to be held as culprits. But then this Sufi thought, this tradition of Ibn al-Arabi, makes us see a contrasting way, a contrast from this established peripatetic belief. Um, and then we see the doctrine of unity of existence promoted by the Akbarians makes Islam a more inclusive religion that allows for multiple interpretations of truth, given that the ultimate background of everything is one absolute and all pervasive God. So, given this doctrine of unity of existence, uh, the Sufi thinkers were more inclusive in their approach. They could engage with other schools of thought, give them equal opportunity to express themselves, and not be very staunch with their beliefs. They were not orthodox. Perhaps Sufism itself was a counter revolution to uh, excessive Islamic jurisprudence and um what you call theological overpowering. So uh, this was more of a more easygoing way of understanding the Islamic religion. Um, Finally, the philosophy of Akbarian thinkers allows us to see strong resonances in thought between Islamic and Indian mysticism. Muhibullah himself was acquainted with Indian philosophy and promoted equal treatment of all religions in legal matters. His reply to Dara Shikoh, the Mughal prince, is an evidence of this fact. Thus, these Sufi thinkers can be seen as promoters of communal harmony, for their central doctrine is all about seeing unity in diversity. So, thank you very much. Thank you for being so patient. I'd rather open the floor to question and answers.